Hello, everybody. We are back with another Microsoft Unboxed Pod. This is episode 33. We are the big 3-3.
We are getting old on a regular basis, but we're happy to be getting old if you guys keep
Yes,
watching and
exactly.
listening.
I'm your host today, Kareem Anderson. I'm joined by,
David Allen, I hope everybody out there is doing well on this Friday.
yeah, we hope those of you listeners on the East Coast, you guys are being safe. I am in Florida. David, where are you coming from?
North Carolina, so we have Helen on the back door back here. So if I disappear, just know my power probably went out. I don't think Helen is strong enough here to sweep me away, but she is strong enough to break my connectivity. So if I disappear, I'll have to return.
I think he just made a personal challenge, so he probably will be cut off in the next half hour or so. So those of
Probably so.
you, yeah, you never want to talk to Mother Nature that way. And David, he's very bold this morning, this afternoon. Regardless, we are going to try and bring you the news as quickly as we can in case things do go south. We had another quiet week, and Microsoft is making a butt out of all of us because we keep telling you next week's going to be more news, and next week isn't. So we're going to stop saying that. We're just going to bring you the news, whatever it may be. Again, another quiet weekend in Microsoft field, but we do have some important headlines that do actually happen to deal with Microsoft. But we're going to bring you, like I said, all the news, which includes Alienware's debut of a new Pro headset. This pod is going to be very gaming centric, so I hope those of you who are looking forward to that, stay tuned. We also have Microsoft reportedly spending about $1 billion per year on Game Pass deals. So in addition to shelling out about 70 billion for uh, the biggest publisher in the world, they are also doing some backroom stuff to make, entice people, make it palatable to get Game Pass. We'll also be talking about Logitech launching MX Creative Console, what that actually means, and getting the details about that. We also have a pretty significant legal battle between Microsoft and Google in the EU. This again is one of the first times that they have legally met in the arena of legality and antitrust. Well, I'm sure it won't be the last. Microsoft is also consolidating its mobile gaming apps on mobile, so we'll tell you about the details on that and which one wins in the end. It's kind of like Highlander. Then we're going to be talking about Meta's Connect 2024, which was one of the biggest events of this week. There was a lot of good press and coverage about it. People were pretty positive in general about a new 3S headset, AI upgrades, the upgrade to the Ray-Ban AR glasses. People were loving those. And then lastly, we'll wrap up with Samsung, also held an event, a very much more subdued, low-key one, but they did introduce some significant things with the Samsung S24 FE. Normally, the kind of lower budget, what they call the fan edition version, but the big significance of this one is that it has the same camera as the S24, which has never been done really before. I think they are at least taking a page from Google. They also introduced a tablet and some other things, so we'll get into those details. I've talked long enough for this intro. Please get us into our first story, David.
You got it, buddy. Alienware. We were invited to one of the online press briefing this week. Thank you to Dell and Alienware for that. And we got all the goods on the new Alienware Pro headset that was made in collaboration with Team Liquid. Now, I'm generally not someone who gets overly excited about gaming accessories and headsets and stuff like that. Now, don't get me wrong, as you can see behind me, I do like my RGB and, I like quality things, but I'm a little bit excited over this Alienware headset, mainly because of what they have done to kind of wrap all of the needed features all into one headset, and it is price competitive. Give you a little bit of a rundown. We have a 50 millimeter graphene coated driver. We have active noise cancellation. We have a two mic setup to kind of help you knock out some of the background noise where all you hear are the footsteps of your Call of Duty enemies around you. We have the soft foam leather like cups for the way Alienware talked about this, the cups are deep, so they surround your ears to not only be comfortable, but to also be another step of blocking out noise. And the nice thing about these is they're all able to be connected with Bluetooth. They're connectable via 2.4 wireless, and they are connectable with their own dongle as well. Alienware says the Bluetooth lag is roughly 80 milliseconds. So that should work with your phone, that would work with your headset. You can also pair multiple devices at the same time, which is neat. Long story short, this headset comes out in October for $229.99. Now that's what surprised me. 70 hours of battery life, all of these features, active noise cancellation, use it with all of my devices, USB C for $229.99. And then there's a lot of headsets out there that don't have these features wrapped into one headset that are on the market that are a bit more pricey than this. So I am very excited to see this headset myself, get my hands on one, maybe do a review for you guys, do a video. Way to go, Alienware. The press sheet looks good. If the headset and the press sheet match up, this could be a winner.
Definitely. Just a little bit more details or clarifications. You said there's 70 hours. That's over 2.4 gigahertz with noise
Yes.
cancellation off. If you wanted to have active noise cancellation, and this is usually the biggest battery drainer, you can still get 35 hours worth of that. So, I mean, that is a lot of me dying in silence, but at least there's 35 hours worth of that. So that's pretty big. You can get about 75 hours over Bluetooth and active noise cancellation off. So we're getting, you know, days worth of battery life. So I know for me, that's usually complicated because that tends to mean that I forget to recharge my things in intervals. I know that like, hey, every day's worth I get on my phone. At the end of the night, I need to charge it. That's just built into muscle memory. When I can go a couple days without it, then I set up to get ready to game. I'm like, all right, let's go. And I'm like, oh man, 3 days ago, it's been 3 days. I forgot to charge it because the battery life is that good. So it's a monkey's paw situation. Like you get something really good, and maybe this is the end result of it. But the other thing that should be noted is that these are, while they are specifically designed for gaming, can be used out and about because you can
Yes.
detach the microphone from the headset so that they look and feel and operate like normal headsets when you're out on the street and stuff. So you're not looking like a commander sitting on the subway or anything like that. You can take the mic off and go out and about. So that thing, to your point of them being 229 dollars, and they can also work as like the Bose Quiet Comfort or Beats or the AirPod Max, I think they are, or whatever. They can operate as those, and then you get home, connect the microphone, and they operate as like your gaming headset as well. I think that's a pretty good package. So I'm looking forward to them as well. Unless you have anything else to say, we can move on to our next topic.
Let's roll on to the next one. If I had anything else to say about that, if I'm ready for the release date, I may pick a set of these up.
Awesome. Our next topic is a report about Microsoft and what they're spending in addition to the 70 billion they spent to get Activision Blizzard. Microsoft is reportedly spending about $1 billion a year to bring third-party games to Game Pass. Then this report's coming from Bloomberg. They revealed the number in a detailed profile of Sarah Bond. I think we mentioned that profile last week. It's interesting. It's a very interesting one. She's not new to the Xbox community, but she is. I'm getting some background noise. I don't know if that's you or me. Uh, but she's been in the Xbox community, but she's being more highlighted now since she was in the spotlight for the regulatory battles. Anyway, we know that Microsoft launched Game Pass back in June of 2017. They promised to bring a bunch of games over. They've been slowly doing that. But this $1 billion new report, this fee or whatever that they're paying, is kind of new because we don't know what it costs to entice developers to put their games on here, because that is, aside from having great games, the biggest challenge is in getting people to buy in on this as well. Over the year, Game Pass model has been a recurring source for the concern of the industry, game industry, because you know you buy into this, but how much of the revenue do you get from it? Microsoft's been trying to do, I think it's a 60-40 or 70-30 for the gamer and 30 for them or something like that split as far as shared revenue is concerned. Uh, Still, Game Pass is, it is what it is. Uh, I'm trying to figure out, whether or not this $1 billion is actually being uh, seen by the users at the end of the day. We are seeing that I think Microsoft has upped its user subscribers from 22 million to 34. They reported 22 in January. They're up to 34. January of 2022, they're up to 34 now. So over the last 2 years, they've increased that number. Uh, and most of those are basically people coming from Xbox Live, switching over to Xbox Live Gold members, switching over to Game Pass finally. Uh, Here's my question to you, David.
Okay.
They spent 70 billion to get Call of Duty essentially, and the other properties, World of Warcraft, and some other big titles from Activision Blizzard. What do you think this extra $1 billion gets them for Game Pass to get third party people on, to get all of those smaller, platformers and indie games on here? Are you seeing that? Are you feeling that $1 billion has been manifested?
Not really. And I'm going to have to agree with our buddy Thurrott. He brings this up many times this year, and he's brought it up this year more than any. And I'm going to kind of do it his way. Xbox Game Pass. What are you doing? Where's the titles? Where's the stuff? You know, this year has been, hey, we bought Call of Duty. You're getting Call of Duty the end of October. Okay, I'm going to again. I agree with our buddy Mr. Paul Thurrott. What have we received the first 9 months of the year? I feel like this year Game Pass has been lackluster, and we're talking about, as we mentioned off mic, more experiences with Game Pass of doing it on handhelds, doing it on Steam Decks, doing it on TVs. But ultimately, if you're not producing the titles that people want to play, you can put them on any platform you want. People are not going to subscribe to them.
Yeah. I mean, to your point, what was the other than waiting for Call of Duty, what has been the driver for Game Pass as far as marketing is concerned, at least for Microsoft? What have they come out and put on TV, on YouTube, on Twitch, wherever they're going to market gaming, and said, hey, this is the reason to get Game Pass, other than maybe Sea of Thieves, which again, great game. Where are the experiences? Where are they saying, like, all right, well, maybe we don't have the games, but guess what? You can get Game Pass on Netflix. Where are the ads to say, hey, you can get Game Pass and you can buy a controller and use your Amazon Fire Stick to play,
Yeah.
Halo, our series of Halo games. Like, I feel like they are making moves. We report about them, and then it just kind of goes into the ether, and we're waiting for the next move that then triggers this domino effect. Like, oh, okay, they made all those moves back in 2022, and this is the end result. But it feels like they made all those moves back in 2022, and they continue to make moves. And us as gamers are all we're really seeing at the end of the day is like, hey, Game Pass went up another $2.
Well, to your point, I've noticed a couple things in the last couple of weeks. Not to get too far off track, we're making some house changes around here. So we're moving some furniture, doing a little remodeling. So we were looking at ways to change experiences in the household here with siblings and nieces, nephews, grandchildren, etc. And I noticed something in my shopping a few weeks ago, a little over a month ago. We reported that Amazon Fire Stick and Xbox had a deal. It was like it's ranged between 75, $80. I think it's been as high as 85, $88, where you got the 4K Fire Stick, and then you got the controller, and you could have the Xbox experience. I went back to buy one of those yesterday. I was going to make the purchase, I was going to get it, and I have a place for it with our remodeling, a place to put it. Perfect setup, exactly what needs to be there. It's out of stock, currently unavailable. As of yesterday, they didn't know when it would be back available. So my question there is, what's the problem there? Are you telling me that we've gotten that many new subscribers that Amazon sold out of all the 4K Fire Sticks with the controller combo? Okay, if we got that many subscribers, good. Somebody in supply and demand needs to get on the ball and figure out what we need to do to keep these in stock. Amazon and Microsoft, as big as they are, should not be having stock problems. But to your point, we reported on it. We thought it was a big deal. Several other outlets thought it was a big deal. Several other podcasts thought it was a big deal. I never heard another word from Microsoft about it, other than look what we did, you know. And I get it. Maybe they don't make anything on the hardware that they're selling, but that recurring subscription cost should mean something. Because if you buy that bundle, you are required to be a Game Pass Ultimate subscriber to get the cloud gaming service. Microsoft, in my opinion, should be football commercials. We should see it in there. Basketball's coming up. We should see it in it. We should have seen it during the Olympics. They should have been pushing this. This was less than $100. Somebody could spend. A parent, somebody on a fixed income, somebody on a low income, could have spent less than $100 and had a gaming experience that is reputable and enjoyable if Microsoft would do a better job of marketing what they're doing and coming up with ways to enhance that experience. We laugh, and I'm going to stop here, I promise. I realize I've gotten on a little bit of a soapbox about this. We laugh about the Xbox streaming device. We laugh about the interviews that were done with Phil Spencer, where we spotted the little box in the background sitting on a shelf, and people speculated as to what that was. Phil Spencer keeps talking about play anywhere, the gaming experience. We're missing the experience right now. We've got to fix this problem.
Yeah, I don't have too much to add. I mean, you think you nailed everything. I know that they had their gaming showcase, and there's some trailers that came out, which are great. We know that they bought a bunch of studios. We're waiting to see kind of the end results of that as well. It's been 3+ years. I think it takes what 3 to 5 years to develop a pretty decent game. I would suspect, but we should at least be getting some trailers, some explanation as to where that money went for all those studios. Maybe this $1 billion is bundled into that equation as well. But they said third party, so it's not even the first party exclusive that Microsoft can start pushing, like Sea of Thieves, which again, amazing game. We haven't heard much from the racing sim sector. The
No,
Forza line has gotten kind of quiet. So I said all this to say, and with this is that, and we've always said this continuously, Microsoft needs to give us a direction and follow through with it. Now we knew, and again, for better or for worse, because right now I think we are in the nebulous gaming area, but we at least knew in 2013 that they were going to try and go for gaming and to have the console be your set top box. We hated it. I personally have a problem with it, but the gaming community didn't really appreciate it at the time. Maybe it was the technology, maybe it was just social behavior at the time, but that was their vision, and they at least explained it as best they could. They put all their arrows in that direction and went for it. They missed, fair enough, but at least we knew that was the direction. Since then, they've kind of eased off of that, and to your point, they said gaming everywhere. But we actually don't have gaming everywhere. So we don't we you know we see some of their arrows pointing that direction. Maybe it's just a longer process, maybe it's a longer funnel. But right now, they've moved a lot of things on the chessboard, but we can't see any clear strategy. And so, I think Spencer needs to and Co. So Sarah's part of this now that she's being profiled and whatnot, and come out and say, hey, you know what? Oh, this is with all that money we've done, all the press releases, all the game trailers you've seen, this has all been leading up to this. This is the big thing. We're finally on mobile with all of these games. We built a mobile app store, and that's what we were trying to do. We put a bunch of stuff in place for it. You guys have sat here patiently for the past 4 years, and here's your reward. But right now, I don't see any of that lining up.
And I'm gonna add 30 seconds to this. There's a smaller story that we don't have featured here on the podcast where Microsoft announced this week they were consolidating the Xbox features into one Xbox app.
Oh, we got it.
Or did we put that in the?
You did, my friend. You can go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Well. Let me go ahead and kind of roll with that. I guess.
Segue.
Yeah. Let me give us a bad segue to this. We've had Xbox gaming, and we've had the Xbox app, then we've had the Game Pass app. And to me, that's always been confusing because I recently got a new tablet, and one of the first things I wanted to do was how well does it stream? How well does Game Pass perform? And then I realized I had to have two apps for that to work. And I thought that was a little odd, little strange. Well, now you can get it all in one Xbox app that is coming November
November.
2024, and everything will be in one place. Your remote installs, your remote plays, it'll be more streamlined. Uh, Insiders are able to evaluate it now and evaluate more of it here shortly on iOS and Android. So hopefully, we're not getting any arguments over who's getting what. You'll be able to support the Game Pass integrations. You'll have the party chat, the text chat, as I mentioned, the remote installs, the remote plays. I think this is maybe what the Xbox app should have been in the first place. I think when we hit the Game Pass and cloud gaming beta, Microsoft divided this up and we had the Xbox app, then we had the cloud gaming app, and they kind of kept things separately and kept diverging things. So maybe we are finally starting to see a few things converge together. Does this lead us to more info about the mobile gaming store? I hope so. But to our point, we've got to keep working on these experiences. We've got to streamline things. We've got to give people the best experiences for them to buy the hardware, to buy the accessories where the profit margins sit.
Yeah, this is textbook Microsoft. For those of you who are new to the Microsoft news world or Microsoft in general, Microsoft over engineers everything. They make duplicates of stuff because they are afraid to leave legacy behind, like Apple does routinely. So they will build an app, then build a new app, and let both apps exist at the exact same time, and leave users wondering when the transition will eventually happen and why there are two apps existing when it's where's the confidence level in saying, hey, we created this new app to replace this old one, but we didn't let it get replaced yet, so we're going to run them both. And people are like, well, where do I start investing my time? Do I leave it here? Are you going to cancel this one? Are you just testing this one? When will this happen? And they've done it with Outlook. That's one of the biggest ones. We had like four different versions of Outlook for people to access your mail. We had a mobile version of Outlook. We had a web app version of Outlook. We had Outlook Exchange, which is the big clunky classic one that had all the features. And then we had Mail, which was just some random UWA property on Windows. You get four ways to get your mail, and people love some of them hated them. But the idea that Microsoft couldn't just have Outlook and that be your one experience where they put all those features into it and make it streamlined and effective and optimized. seem beyond everybody. Microsoft loves to do that. And the same thing happened with this Xbox game app. We had ways to get your gaming content, and then we had ways to interact with your gaming content. The way you took snapshots, you screenshotted things, the way you went about managing achievements, things like all separate in one app. Then you had to go to a different app in order to stream and play your games, and manage your subscriptions. And it made no sense. Like, why weren't these apps the same thing? Why do I have to pull up two different apps? So Microsoft's doing what they do best. I wouldn't read too much into it because, again, I felt burned over the last year and a half of just maligned meandering as far as gaming is concerned. I love Phil Spencer. He brought a lot of goodwill when he first kind of showed up. I feel like I personally have worn thin on that. I want to see results as a gamer. Uh, and maybe I'm just being, obtuse. Maybe there are things that I'm just overlooking, and maybe there are people with finer details saying, "Nope, these are the fine thin lines you need to be. These are the threads you need to be paying attention to because these will result in bigger things." But as
Well,
someone who's covered Microsoft for a long time, I don't see it.
I don't. I'm not going to say you're wrong there because as journalists, we look at the finer details. But when I think about what you're saying, I look at it from a consumer point of view. If the consumer can't see it, it didn't happen. I hate to be that way about it, but if the consumer doesn't see you coming out with something, doesn't see things evolving, doesn't see experience changing, they start looking elsewhere.
Mhm.
They start looking for other ways to entertain themselves. This is where other companies are able to jump in, such as look at the shot Sony took last week with the PlayStation 5. We talked about it last week. They took a shot. They said
Oh, yeah.
here is a graphically improved console, more horsepower. You might not like the $700 price tag, but we're going to test to see what you're willing to pay for that improved experience. Now, I don't believe for 1 minute once we get past the scalpers that are, looking 5 grand for these things. I don't think for 1 minute that the PlayStation 5 Pro is going to stick at $700. I think Sony is throwing a dart at the board to see what people might pay. Then it will be on sale. Notice how I said that on sale at various times for a cheaper amount of money until Microsoft throws something back in the fight.
We put a period on that. We'll move on to our next topic, which I believe is another one of yours. We got Logitech and their next
Yes,
creative console.
Logitech. Logitech surprised me this week. This was, I first read this and I'm like, nope, they're just trying to compete with the Stream Deck. Not quite. Logitech's doing something a little differently here. They gave us the Logitech MX, how they like to put everything under that MX branding. Logitech MX Creative Console. And what this is, if you've seen a Stream Deck or maybe the Microsoft Surface Dial, or if you're a creator and you've got one of these hardware dials that you use for scrubbing your timeline, it's
Yeah, I
kind of
think
what this.
DaVinci has
Yeah,
one. It's like yeah, and
DaVinci
Asus
has
built it into what was that
the
laptop?
ProArt laptops.
There we go.
So this was kind of neat to me when I first saw it. I said, "Well, there's a Stream Deck competitor, and they're not quite." For $199.99, you on October 14th, you get a package deal here of a keypad that is tightly integrated with the Adobe suite to allow you to manipulate your photos, use the generative AI a little better, to use the dial for scrubbing your timeline, adjusting your color correction in your photos, for example. You can use the text based editing in Adobe Premiere Pro with it, with the new AI features that are out there. Now, there are going to be plugins, according to Logitech, There's going to be plugins and integrations, so I do expect there to be the OBS integrations, probably the Streamlabs integrations. I think they'd be stupid not to do that, to tell you the truth. But this is a little different. This is more creative focused and a little less streamer focused. And I'll throw this out there, like I said, $199.99, available on October 14th. You can pre-order it now. But before I jump totally off of this topic, you will notice if you go to the Elgato website, there is a big banner. They now have integration with Adobe. So the fight is on for the integrators out there.
Yeah, I mean, this is something I want to try out. I am not to the level of this, but I would love to play around with it. I know that these are
Yes.
usually for people who are doing studio work, working on TV show, working on film. They need that finer grained tactility for these things. I mean, even for some YouTube, I'm sure I just eat and some other people use stuff like this. Marcus Brownlee and whatnot, and his crew. But I would love to try this out because I am getting moderately decent at uh, Adobe and some film editing. So uh, if you're listening out there, Logitech, send one your way. Send one your boys' way. We would love to try this out, play around with it.
Yes.
I do think that it'll be a boon for people who have the desk space to use it and who find the investment well worthwhile to have these peripherals that do all this extra creative work that tie into the apps versus them having to manually kind of make their own patchwork rigs and get-togethers. Anyway, we'll move on to our next topic, which is Microsoft and Google fighting. Yes, boys and girls, Microsoft and Google are fighting again. This time, it's actually pretty legal in the legal capacity. The EU or Google has finally dragged Microsoft into its battle listings for the EU by saying that it's being anti-competitive with its licensing for Azure. Now we've talked about this before, and the reason why these two stories, what we talked about a couple weeks ago, and this story tie into place is because they're over the exact same thing. Uh, a new Reuters report, this piece from Philip Blinkas, Blinkensop. Google has filed a complaint with the European Commission on Wednesday that alleges that Microsoft deployed anti-competitive practices to lock users into Azure services uh, over those of competitors such as Google Cloud or Amazon's AWS. And more specifically, I believe Google Cloud VP Amit Zavri claims that Microsoft made customers pay a 400% markup to keep running Windows servers on rival cloud operators. And this is where the anti-competitive behavior comes into place. You can't necessarily do that. Conversely, the same markup was absent for anyone who chose to stick with Azure as part of their integrated stack. So it's like, hey, you can use whatever third party you like. We are not stopping from doing that, but it's going to cost you. It just so happens when you use our own Azure one, that fee just disappears. Um, Xavier further claims that our customers were the customers that were willing to swallow the disproportionate markup were also saddled with secondhand support that included delayed and limited security updates. So not only is it bad enough that you're saying, you know what, Microsoft, screw you, I don't want to use Azure. I will pay the 400% markup. Microsoft's then saying, yeah, it'd be a shame if something happened to your security. I mean, don't get me wrong, we'll give you your update. Just when the Azure people get it, somehow it got lost in the mail when we were trying to give it to you. So that's what he's claiming as evidence, as further evidence of how Microsoft has kind of cornered the market on this stuff. Xavier points to a 2023 report from CISP, which is it's basically the code of conduct of regulatory or investigative body for cloud services organization. Uh, it was founded by a group of European business customers and organizations. The report said that those business customers and organizations were being billed up to about a billion euros just on Microsoft licensing penalties alone. So Microsoft's making just $1 billion in penalties, not even the providing services. Just like, hey, you've crossed these licensing fees or expiration dates or terms of service, and now you owe us. Now, that all sounds bad. And if proven true, hey, punish the hell out of Microsoft. I'm all for it. But unfortunately for Xavier, if that's how you pronounce it, I apologize. Microsoft just struck a 20 million euro deal to squash a similar cloud service based antitrust complaint investigation initiated by the same CISPE group. That's why I said, like, our reporting last week is that, or a couple weeks ago, was that Microsoft had basically forked over some money to the European Commission to say, hey, uh, based on some concessions we're going to make and this money, will you guys not look into us legally? Like, you can't file a full throated antitrust claim. They were nipping around the edges. They were saying, Microsoft, we've got some complaints from this, business organization in Europe that's saying you have some unfair licensing practices, and if we find that out, we're going to have to drag you guys into court, and there'll be a whole potential, spinning off of businesses or compensation for revenue. It could get ugly for you. And Microsoft said, all right, back up. We'll do whatever the CISPE wants us to do, and here's some money. Don't drag us into court. Now here comes Google saying, hey, we weren't part of that, so we're going to sue anyway. The problem is that it's going to be hard for the European Commission to say, oh, we'll take up your case now, even though we just settled for the almost exact same thing with this group. Back in July of 2024, Microsoft sought to avoid the full-blown antitrust charges, but after working with the CISPE and its European members for more than a year, quote, Microsoft says, I am pleased, or Microsoft, I think it's Brad Smith, said, I am pleased that we have not only resolved the concerns of the past, but also worked together to define a path forward that brings even more competition to cloud marketing in Europe and beyond. In addition to the payout, Microsoft was also charged with deploying a product that allows CISPE members to run its software on their platforms for the equivalent pricing. Now, again, not everyone in Europe, just members of this particular organization that first brought up the complaint. Microsoft will also be forced to reimburse those exact same members in the group for lost revenue over the past 2 years due to its previously unfair licensing costs. So, on top of the $20 billion, they will reimburse, again, members of this particular group. And of this group, the members include Nectera, CWeb, Data, Host European Group, and Amazon. See, that's really going to undercut Google, because they could have said, hey, not only are we being cut out of this, but Amazon's getting cut out of this. We have a partner in this, a very big partner, a very loud partner, a very expensive partner. We can force change. But because they are part of this group, Amazon has nothing to say about this so far. With that being said, Microsoft seems pretty confident that the new deal with the EU will basically shield them from Google's thing, because, again, they've already squashed this exact same complaint with pretty much the same people who would have complained with Google. So it basically feels like Google's kind of SOL because they weren't part of this group. What are your thoughts on this?
If this is true, I totally agree with you. Microsoft needs to be busted here. You know, I think you covered all the details very well, and you covered everything there. But as I'm sitting here listening to the details after I had read your post, I have mentioned this in previous podcasts. I think we're just getting started with these wars because the cloud market is so competitive right now. Everybody's, instead of focusing on making their cloud better, they're arguing with their competitors. We need to stop the arguing. And I know this is not going to happen. I know I'm being a little bit superficial here. But we need to stop the arguing and everybody focus on making the best product for the consumers. There's enough pie out there for everybody to get a piece. And I think the more, we've seen Google in court a couple times. We've seen threats to give Microsoft in court several times. We've seen Amazon talk about court several times. Ultimately, this is where we are. Everybody is selling cloud services. Everybody's infringing on somebody's competition for something else. Everybody's overcharging for this license. Everybody's charging this fee. It would seem to me that I'm a very simple businessman, that these companies need to get it together and decide how to play nice and maybe even come up with their own set of rules. Who knows? But as long as we continue to drag people to court over what this person's doing, what that person's doing, or this person's being anti competitive, that person's being anti competitive, I'm not sure that we're cleaning anything up as much as we're putting regulations in place that we hope will clean things up. But it's also curving innovation in the wrong way. Because when your innovators are thinking about what's next, and they're sitting in the boardroom and they're thinking about, oh, remember this court filing we've got to go out. Remember now, if we do this, this court filing might come back. We're starving off innovation. And I wish these companies could get together, sit down and say, we sell cloud, you sell cloud, you sell cloud. This is the way we should do it. It's not going to happen. That's like asking Ford, Chevrolet, and Toyota to sit down and come up with a equal way to sell cars. That's not the way business works. But I think that's what we're going to have to drive forward. And I don't think we want people sitting in courts and attorneys and judges putting together our regulations in the end, because they're going to get tired of anti competitive here, anti competitive there. And eventually, this is my opinion, there's going to be a set of rules that's not controlled by Google, that's not controlled by Microsoft, Amazon, Meta, or any of them. And if you don't like them, tough. You put yourself in this situation. You know, it's kind of like your child. You tell your child once, don't do that. You tell your child twice, don't do that. Well, then eventually mom and dad have to step in and set the stipulation. The child doesn't like the stipulation when mom and dad said it, but usually mom and dad's going to say, look, we've had enough. This is what we're going to do, whether you like it or whether you don't. This is what we're going to do. And that's where these lawsuits over anti competitive with cloud and what people are charging for fees and how people are doing business practices, I feel like we're walking that way.
No, I agree with you. I partially agree. There was an aspect you had earlier about the companies getting together and kind of sorting this out. I do want to personally avoid that because I feel like that's colluding. We've had that happen before. We had that, I think,
True.
we
Yeah, you're right
in
there.
the because they will all get together and just like the mafia say, all right, well, what works for everybody? And unfortunately, you know who's not in that room? Customer to be like, excuse me, that doesn't work for us. They'll just say, hey, we're going to force the market to work for us and damn the customer, but it works for us. So I would avoid that. But to your analogy of kind of having the parents step in, we need. I think what we need to push for or more forward thinking, better educated on the topic regulations, things that preclude stifling innovation, but understand that these are the parameters in which the cloud services can grow, and we need to make sure that we have some buffers around that. And again, companies are free to wheel and deal in those parameters, and those parameters can be flexible. But we don't need to have older people who don't quite understand it do a burn all situation. So again, if you have two kids and they're fighting over a doll, and you step in and say, you know what? Not only am I taking the doll, I'm burning all your toys. We don't need that situation. We need someone to understand who first owned the doll, what is the best practical way going forward as far as giving those two children more toys. Do you give one child bigger toys? Do you give in compensation you give the other child more smaller toys? Do you buy the exact same toy for each one? That's the kind of nuance that I think these regulators need to have going forward. Like, all right, yeah, we're regulating on this thing, but we also have to make regulations when we say it today that are flexible in the future. And again, to Google's point, nothing's set in stone. And this is a legal battle, which means that it's all up to syntax and definitions and meanings. So they could still have a fight here, even though Microsoft settled with a group that also has Amazon in it, because Google wasn't part of this. And if they can come with an argument that they use a slightly different word or phrasing about the way that Microsoft's going about business, the EU can say, hey, we agreed to this thing specifically for our group, guys. Google's arguing a whole different thing or a slightly different thing. And you are liable for that, Microsoft. You are definitely going to be held accountable for that specific argument that Google has. So we'll see how this is going forward. I doubt that, they have armies of lawyers that I'm sure they've combed over more than what we're discussing. And again, we mark this as significant because this is the first time Microsoft's had a hot war with Google. They've had tons of cold wars where Google wouldn't develop apps for Windows Phone, or Google, or Microsoft marketed the Gmail man campaign, or the Boogeyman Google thing, Gmail Google thing. Like they've done these kind of like prodding at each other, but this is the first time that they're going to go into legal battle, which will again have pretty significant ramifications going down the line. Let's wrap it up. We'll got two more stories. I'll let you go with Samsung's announcement this week.
Samsung had a big week this week. They kind of slipped under the radar on me. But we have the new Samsung S24 FE this time with AI. And we got a new roundup of tablets for the Galaxy Tab S10 Plus and the ginormous Galaxy Tab S10 Ultra. That also comes in at a little bit of an ultra price, but still hangs out just below the iPad Pro line. So let's kind of jump in. Officially, the Samsung S24 FE is usually known as the Fan Edition. That's where FE came from. This year, as you mentioned, we have the same camera in the FE that we have in the regular S24, which is interesting. We have 128, 256 storage. That hits you at $649.99 for the 128, $709.99 for the 256. We have a 6.7-inch OLED screen. Now, a catcher for some folks, these devices are powered by the Samsung Exynos 2400E processor. Qualcomm is not, Samsung is not using the Qualcomm processor in these chips, probably a cost saving measure there. You're looking at 7 years of updates. You've got a 50 megapixel shooter, an 8 megapixel telephoto, and a 10 megapixel selfie camera. Now, they're calling a piece of software here Samsung Pro Visual Engine. In short, software constructed enhanced photos, if that's your thing. I know some people are getting a little bit upset with that style of photos and they just want the
Yeah, I
good
mean
photo.
it's the post processing that we get from Apple and Google in their thing. So you take your snap, and it takes you 2 or 3 seconds for them to filter in image depth, tones, colors, saturation, all that kind of stuff, and they kind of readjust the picture and then present it to you. So that's, I mean, basically what you're getting at. Just may take your photos a little few more seconds to process.
Yep, and I get it. Some people want that, some people don't. But I think there's a balance in between in the settings there of how much post processing you allow and how much post processing you do yourself. To be fair, we also have, before I jump into the tablet, we have the Galaxy Watch FE, which supports LTE. That goes on sale for $249. And we have the Galaxy Tab S10 Plus and S10 Ultra. The S10 Plus drops in at 12.4 inches. The S10 Ultra is back to the 14.5 Mammoth tablet. This year they are powered by the MediaTek Dimensity 9300. We heard about the MediaTek CPUs coming in tablets last year, so this year Samsung has picked those up in their tablets, so that should make them more power efficient. We also have a new anti-reflective screen this year on both models. I have seen a few video reviews. It looks to do very well at knocking down your reflections from your fluorescent lights, from your office lights, from your studio lights. All of these devices go on sale October 3rd. So my question to you is, when I say you, our watchers and listeners, what device are you picking up? Because for me, seeing that the cameras are similar this year, it makes that FE just a little more attractive. The FE's got the OLED screen kicking in there. We can throw stones, I think, at which processors in there, Snapdragon or the Samsung Exynos. So I think for most people, that's a toss up. That price looks mighty attractive to me. So I want to know from our readers, viewers, listeners, what device would you pick up?
That's a good question. I think most people will probably pick up the phone only because it's the most accessible one. There will definitely be deals and trade-in values and accessibility as far as care is what I'm concerned about. At least here in the U.S., there are easier ways to get to the phone than there are the tablet, which again you're paying a full $1,000 or almost $1,200 for either one of these tablets. I have a Galaxy tablet; it is well worth the price for one. But again, I think personally, people can walk into Cricket, they can walk into T-Mobile, they can walk into Verizon, AT&T, and T, and say, "Hey, I have uh, an old Galaxy phone," and they can walk out with, "Hey, here's your new phone that is just as, for all intents and purposes, as good as the S24 Ultra, but you're instead of paying an extra $30 a month, you're paying $5 a month, and you can hold it in one hand, and you don't need to manage, do finger gymnastics in order to manipulate and stuff like that." I think the phone is going to do well. I think this is also sort of taking a page from Google with their Google Pro and Pro XL, where the two only share the difference between size. This is also a step up for the FE basic people. So basically, if you want an S24 device at a cheaper price, you just have to wait a few weeks or months, and you can get that device. So I think it's a win-win for Google. I mean, for Samsung. The MediaTek processors in the Galaxy tabs will be a bit of question. We'll see how they do over time and whether or not that affects the amount of software support that you get for these devices. And lastly, it seems like they're taking the reflective tech from the S24 and they're applying it to the tablets finally and to the phone. So that's, again, plus all the way around. Good job, Samsung. Last story.
Now, I,
Oh,
I,
go
I
ahead.
will throw one thing in there. Last year, no, 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 I need to get my times right. It was this year. We reviewed the Lenovo Tab Extreme. That had the MediaTek CPU in it that we're
Mhm.
referring to. I enjoyed that particular tablet really because it was the Tab Ultra competitor. It had the big screen. That screen was 14.4, I think, and this one's 14.6. Had the OLED screen. Battery life on it was really good. It was really powerful. I mean, it could take anything you could throw at it, video editing, gaming. Really didn't phase it. So if Samsung can get the same performance out of it, I think they've got a winner on their hands too.
Yeah, and their software has gotten really good on the tablets. I think that's been an underrated thing for them. I don't think they get enough credit for the new Dex experience that they offer, which is basically free floating windows. You can kind of manage yourself and all of the other multitasking. But enough said about that. Last story and wrap it up for you, which is MetaCon 2024. Yes, Meta is the thing we still have to say. They haven't gone back to Facebook. But at this event, we had Mark Zuckerberg on stage, and he was hawking some new products. We had the Quest 3S headset, which is a more affordable version of the Quest 3, It's priced at $299 for a 128 gigabyte model. The wireless headset supports the existing Quest app library. It emphasizes mixed reality features. And with that being said, Meta will be discontinuing the Quest 2 and the Quest Pro. So this will be basically that replacement. They also announced upgrades to its Ray-Ban Meta smart glasses, which now include real-time AI video processing. This feature is also the feature also allows users to ask questions about their surroundings, enhancing the utility of the smart glasses, a la Google Glasses, I believe. Meta's AI capabilities received a boost with updates to their Llama AI model, further integrating the AI into their products. The event underscored Meta's commitment to blending, AI and AR and VR technologies. It was a pretty big event because most of these products seem to do what they say they can do. Um, in the surprise announcement, Zuckerberg dramatically revealed the Orion, which is basically the computer's first, Meta's first full consumer full holographic AR glasses. That was the other thing that I didn't have listed at the beginning. Is that Orion or these basic, concept glasses? If you were to take some Warby Parkers and add about 2 extra inches of frame on it, you'd be getting these things. So they're not as lightweight or as weird looking as Google glasses, but they offer a lot of the beefed up versions of the features that were there. You have a neural interface, which I guess is being sold as like this AR assistant that's going to be there as well. Um, but again, that one won't necessarily be available now, but it is something that they are looking to get to. And I believe this is the spot that Apple Vision Pro wants to get to eventually. It's going to take them a lot longer based on the way that they did their presentation, the VR aspect of it. But I think at the end of the day, all these companies that are introducing VR and AR or mixed reality experiences want to get to this pure AR reality that offers a very integrated into your lifestyle experience. We see it all the time in demos and concepts, but that's it. The other things that AR Meta rolled out, like I said, was the Llama 3.2 AI model that was announced. It's a Meta's lingual Llama family of models that's reached the 3.2 mark um, at 11 billion and 90 billion interprets. Uh, you'll be able to basically look at a map of a park and tell how long certain paths are, how the terrain is, how steep it is. If you were like querying about a certain specific area, if you were trying to set up a hike or something like that, that's how detailed this new AI model has gotten. Um, the Ray Bans, I think, are one of the bigger hits of this whole thing. Like again, the Quest was great, but I think at least tech journalists are having a field day with these Ray Ban glasses because one, they look like real glasses, and two, they again are just becoming more accessible. They may not be the dream that we wanted, where you can just these pair of glasses I have do all the AR things. They're getting pretty close with it. So again, we have AR glasses, new AI models. We have a concept platform that's going to be coming out, and we have the VR. And I think at the end of the day, Facebook or Meta kind of knocked it out of the park with this one. What are your thoughts?
This was unexpected. I gotta say, I was not expecting them to just say, "Hey, look, look what we've done." Especially Meta. I did not see this from Meta. I saw this from, as you mentioned, Apple or you know maybe Google or with the Google glasses, maybe even someone else. I did not see this from Meta. I think this is a step forward in AR and our experiences, and I understand why journalists are going crazy over it because I feel like I picked up a pair of glasses the other day. They were Bose or somebody, where you could take calls and do everything right there on the pair of glasses. And I need to be wearing glasses sometimes. I think I'm half blind, and you wear glasses, and I think we're starting to build technology into the things that we wear. We saw the Samsung Ring, for example, We've
Mhm.
got the watches. Most people wear a watch of some sort these days. Again, we're changing experiences, kind of like we talked about with gaming. And are we? I think we have a different argument here. Are we changing experiences for the good, or are we changing experiences for the bad? Some would say it's great. Another way for me to get info, another way for me to communicate. Then there's those that say, do we need all of this in front of us 24/7? I see both sides of the equation. I completely see both sides, and I feel like I can fairly argue both sides. And I feel like these are popular. Meta has done it. Meta will improve on it, but others are watching, and there will be glasses, may be the next wearable.
I
That
definitely,
they say.
yeah,
Go ahead.
they've come a long way. We were hyped personally for Hololens. It has
Yes.
become a commercial entity essentially. But this version, again, and give you just a couple more details. Maybe they'll get these people hyped about it. Is that, like we mentioned, they are getting real time AI video processing, which basically allows people to ask questions or ask the llama or the AI model that's being powered by this to ask the glasses questions for things that are in front of them. So they are processing the world that they are seeing in front of them, and the AI model is able to translate that in real time. So if you're saying like, hey, what is, you go to I don't know, farmer's market with these glasses on, pick up a piece of fruit and you're like, what is this? What is the nutritional value of this? It'll be able to process that in real time and spit out an answer to you. That is, I believe that's always been the goal of our digital assistants. We've had them trapped in our phones, we had them trapped in our laptops. Now you'll be able to have them more accessible as you are accessible. As you can get around and move around, they are right there with you. That's been kind of like, I think that's the goal. That's where Google Glasses aim towards. That's what HoloLens going for. That's what the Vision Pro is going for. The other features that the glasses will get is that they'll be getting smarter. They'll be able to have smartphone-like reminder features. So you'll have little notifications in the top corner that tell you like, hey, you set a timer to do this, or you told people you'd be here at this exact same time or whatever, or you scheduled this meeting. Here's a thing. You also get live translation features. That's always been one of the key features they show these things. So you're able to look at something in a different language and get it translated into English, French, Italian, or Spanish, at least for right now. And then you get full integration with streaming apps like Amazon Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. So I believe they use bone conducting technology for over the ears. So again, you'll be able to go out to said um, farmers market, ask questions about everything. And while you're also doing that, listening to your favorite podcast, and if it's in a different language, get that translated. That is a lot for a pair of glasses. And I believe, again,
Hmm.
we make fun of Meta, and, Apple's Vision Pro has always been compared to the better engineered version of these things. But I think the end goal, they are much closer to than any other company, and that's Microsoft included and everybody else. So good on them. I don't trust Meta, but I am interested in this product. And I'll leave it on that. If you got any last words, let people know, and then we'll wrap this pod up.
No, I just think that's kind of where we're going next. Kind of like you said, there's a different interaction there. Your AI, your assistants are going with you. They're quote seeing what you see. So I'm interested to see where this leads. Do consumers want it? I think that's the other thing. Do consumers want it? And
Ooh, that's a good
consumers
question.
consumers will determine whether this succeeds or fails.
Well, I do think he made a pitch in the presentation itself that this is where the smartphone is going at some point. Apple is making their smartphones thinner, smaller. At some point, I think they've always joked that it's just going to be a pane of glass. And at some point, when that pane of glass goes away, you will just have panes of glass in front of you, i.e., glasses or whatnot. So I can see that being that. I think it's the leap ahead. But I think there's an argument that's merited right there. That maybe we stop holding these things in our hand. Maybe we can finally look up again. With that being said, we want to thank you for joining us for another pod, another week of headline and news. Where can people find you if they want to keep talking about it?
Well, you can look up from your keyboard and you can find me on David on tip threads David PAJ 1978 and over on that other platform Twitter XYZ whatever it's going to be this week. Um, I'm David PAJ 1978 over there. So feel free to jump in over there. We can talk about classes. We can talk about Xbox. We can talk about Microsoft and Google arguing with each other and throwing stones at each other. Whatever you like, bring it over.
Yeah, you can find me at Mindhead1 on Twitter. You can also find me at Kareem Anderson on Threads and Instagram. We do post things to our TikTok, which are basically snippets of here. But if you start asking or talking or wanting to converse there, I will meet you guys there as well. Um, Again, everyone who is on the East Coast right now at this particular moment or this weekend, try and stay safe, try and stay dry, listen to your local authorities so that you guys can join us next week, happy, healthy, and safe.
Yes.
For everyone else in the world, try and stay cool, I suppose, as we enter into fall. We will be back next week with another episode and hopefully some more exciting Microsoft news. Thank you. See you guys later.
Have a good weekend, folks.